You are listening to the Video First podcast presented by Digital 22. The show is hosted by Paul Mortimer, the head of growth, and produced by Jonathan Scribbins, the video specialist at Digital 22.
Are we in?
We're in.
We're in. Okay, welcome to Video First, a new Digital 22 podcast and YouTube series about all things related to video in business and taking a video first approach to everything you do so that it can transform your business. I'm Paul. This is John.
Hello there.
How's it going?
Good. How are we doing, mate?
Yeah, good. We've been doing a couple of days of filming. This is our first new podcast on the Video First series. So Digital 22, we've had Inbound After Hours, Inbound Influencers. We've been doing podcasts for 2 or 3 years now. And you've been with us 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, started back November, I think, or October. Yeah, just end of October, I think.
So, is this the first bit of content you've been on?
This will be the first time my face and voice has been in a Digital 22 piece of content, yeah.
So you've obviously been recording and producing since day one. But yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. As the world is very much aware, we're all in lockdown. So at present, I don't actually live close to the office, so I've travelled up for a few days of filming and recording, all socially distanced and COVID safe, of course. But yeah, it's nice to actually get in and make some content that isn't either a Zoom recording or a Google Meet edit.
No, that's it. And we're going to chat about that, aren't we, of how to make that interesting. So the topic for this first episode is how to make a great webinar at home. But before we get into that, I think just because it's the first one, I think we were just chatting, we've got it in the notes to actually cover off why we're doing video first. So the show is called Video First. It's part of D22 Studios. So you subscribe to Digital 22 on YouTube, Digital 22 Online, or wherever you get your podcasts. And then you'll get the various shows like Inbound After Hours, Inbound Influencers, and now Video First. But why are we doing this, John? What is Video First? Why are we doing it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. We already put out a lot of amazing content at Digital 22. You know, we already have, as you say, a lot of podcasts. But, you know, after we've had many discussions over the last few months since I've started, and I think the world is very much aware that video is the future. You know, working from home, working remotely, people at first were forced to adopt a video strategy within their businesses. Obviously, when you can't meet face to face with customers, you've got to get your message out there somewhere. So, you know, everyone's jumping on Zoom calls, everyone's jumping on Google Meets or using video ad recorders. You know, the list is endless. So I think it was a necessity at first and people were forced to it. And now I think people have gotten to the stage where they're used to it. Very much so. Like, I don't think there's any turning back now, even when the world gets back on track and we're back in our offices, you know, back on location.
Good point, that. So, yeah. Like, I can imagine when we're back in, whenever it is, if it's this summer or when we're back fully operational in the office. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're not listening to just the podcast, you can see the big office behind. If I needed you for 2 minutes and you were in the podcast studio and I was sat in that seat there, I'm not going to lie, I probably would send you a video call.
Yeah. I think that is going to be the way, isn't it? It's just, even if you're next to someone, it's now going to be quicker to send them a video than it is to turn to your left and go, hey.
Yeah.
Because everyone's just so used to it now.
You're not getting your 10,000 steps a day in doing that, but
no.
It's easier. But what about this as a show, Video First? Like, why are we podcasting? I think for me, it's like, well, why are we doing videos about this? I agree with you completely. Video's so fundamental, isn't it? And I think I want to, I don't know, just pass on some of our learnings. We've had loads over the past couple of days, haven't we, for example? So I guess that's the aim for me, just pass on some learnings of doing video and encouraging people to do video. Because if us idiots can do it, then I think everybody's got a purpose and it's good fun as well. So yeah. Hopefully we can pass on some tips and learnings. What do you think, obviously it's the first one, what do you think the show's going to look like? What can people expect?
Good question. I think it's going to be as much a surprise to us as it is to the audience.
That's reassuring.
Yeah, no, but I think that's in a positive way. You know, we are, I mean, just just for people that don't know, so this is our first podcast. I joined the video team, and I'll be running it, and I think it's. You know what? I've forgotten the question. What was the question? I was going off a different tangent.
No, I know.
Yeah,
I think.
What will it look like?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think as I've been here a few months, I've adapted to the way that Digital 22 works. Their style. I've come from a freelance background, so I had my own ways of doing things. So I picked up on Digital 22 style, and then I sort of incorporated my own style into it. But I think the most important thing with video is it's an ever-changing landscape, it's an ever-changing world, and I think for us being a company that really focuses on video, we will adapt and we will change. So I think as this podcast grows, visually, it's going to grow and it's going to change. Even just, as you pointed out earlier, that's our office there, and there's no one here. But in the next few months, hopefully, that'll be a full space, there'll be people working away, and I think that will change the way that it looks on camera. It's going to fill the space for a starter. Visually, it's going to look different, but I think the style of it will change and grow as we change and grow and learn from our own recordings.
That's it. And when you mentioned doing this as a show on the, in the Digital 22 studio umbrella, I think the idea, what stood out for me when you pitched it was the constant changing face of video and trends and just tools and software that's coming out, and hardware is always getting cheaper, and there's always, like when we were just having that tech issue then with the I don't even know what's it called, the four-way
the Tascam recorder.
Tascam, that's a redundant model. We've had it 18 months, so everything's always getting improved and becoming more affordable, so everything's changing. So I like that idea of staying abreast of that. And then I think the other thing we'll always have is a central topic which the show is about, or the episode is about rather. So this week we're looking at how to make a great webinar at home. It's something that people are always doing, and the principles of this really for me apply to if you can make a webinar good and engaging, and you've got some tips that you've researched that you want to run through. I think that can help make a sales pitch more interesting. It can help make a long team meeting more engaging and more impactful. It can make socialising with your teammates remotely more impactful. But webinars are big and they're not going anywhere. I know people got a bit of webinar fatigue last year, but whilst we're remote, they're not going anywhere. And also, even anyway, back to the hardware thing, when we do our events in person, we've got the kit to live stream them on Facebook and so on. So that's always growing.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. And as we said, people were at first they were forced into doing it, but now I think, why would a company pay 10 of its employees to travel to Europe for a conference when you can all sit in a room in front of a camera each, in front of a computer each?
I think now is because a lot of webinars are available. I think there's a danger of not another webinar and people perhaps not going to them, not logging on, or thinking it's going to be just another webinar.
Yeah.
So how do you stop that?
Well, that's sort of where today's topic has arose. It is, as you say, people getting fatigue when it comes to remote calls or webinars. And how do you make that something that people will tune into? How do you get people excited for your webinar out of the 20,000 other webinars that will be put online, in that day alone? So I think, we'll dive into that a little bit. And it's come from a lot of, obviously in my role, I'm editing a lot of webinars for our clients, and I'm seeing a lot of consistent mistakes, a lot of things that me as an editor, but also as a consumer and as a viewer, I'm not finding, after a few months of editing them, I'm not finding them interesting to watch. So You've
got some good examples though, haven't you, before?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Before I start going slaying, I thought I'd start with the bad first. But, there are also some incredible webinars I've seen and some incredible video strategies I've come across. And so I think, a mixture of those two things has really sort of given me a lot of insight of personally what I'd like to see in 2021 from people. And I hope a lot of it we will be implementing ourselves and really leading by example. And that's almost where this is where this podcast has sort of it's been born out of the ashes of 2020, so we can sort of lead the charge to inspire people coming up this year.
That's it. I think we're going to be producing more webinars. You're going to be attending more webinars. I am. So it's just I'd love to see, if anyone comes across this video, add your tips for doing better webinars, add your ideas for keeping webinars engaging. And also I think the same principles apply to a training course or a workshop that you're running online or a long team meeting or anything like that. So,
yeah, absolutely. I'd like to see, we're not sitting here going, we're the experts, listen to everything we say and that's final. There are, as you say,
if you'd watched us setting up, you'd see that, especially.
It's very Laurel and Hardy. But yeah, I'd love to see some examples of how people are improving their webinars. It is a learning experience for everyone, I say, because this is a fairly new landscape for a lot of people. I'd like to see how people are making their video calls interesting.
Yeah, and hopefully we can share some examples, so that'd be good. So if you link us to any of your webinars that you think or ones you've produced or ones you've attended that have got something interesting going on, get them in the comments and we'll love to take a look. Last bit of housekeeping before we dive into the 5 tips. So just about this show work you're producing. You've got 3 camera rigs set up, and you got the Mac there and the mics. How long is the show? What have you got a time check? Are you going to keep me in check, or are we going to talk all night? I've got 1 can of beer.
Yeah, well, we're already about 10 minutes in, and we're only on the intro. So I think.
So we get into it.
Yeah, I think our aim for this was 30 minutes, but I think we're gonna again sort of see how it evolves and grows. I think 30 minutes is a good amount of time for people to listen. But
30 minutes, and let's get as much
who knows
value in as we can.
If we find ourselves interesting, we might keep talking.
Let's get into the topic then. So, where do you start? You said you've edited a lot of webinars. What's going well? What should people be starting with? What's your first tip?
Well, I mean, I've come across some really good examples as of late, and I'll throw one of our clients, Bermudiana Beach. They recently recorded a webinar, and for those of you that don't know, Bermudiana, they deal with holiday homes in Bermuda, and they did a webinar about the effects of COVID on holiday housing, on the pricing, and if it's safe to travel, and they worked remotely, obviously, with people in Bermuda, I believe in Canada and America, and I think there was even someone from England there as well. And there was 6 of them in this meeting. And what really impressed me, and we didn't tell them this is how you should film it. They did this off their own back. They wrote a script beforehand. They didn't just get into the talk, and they didn't just record their Zoom call and just, all right, let's see what happens. They planned it ahead of time, and they had Russell, who works at Bermudiana. They had him he hosted the webinar just to record.
He's good on camera, isn't he?
He is very good on camera, but he actually chose to step out of it and just sort of turn his camera off.
Right.
He was there was their producer almost. He just recorded it, so no one else had to worry about, are we rolling, are we recording, what's the time check, and then they had someone else asking the questions, and then each in turn of them would answer give their answers to their respective profession.
I've not seen this webinar, and I know you told me you were going to mention it, but I didn't know that. I didn't know the ins and outs. So, and sorry if this delays us, producer, but so what was it like? I presume it wasn't. So, John, do you have any tips about buying a condo in Bermuda? I presume it wasn't quite that. What do you mean scripted?
Yeah, so basically they'd given each of their experts and their contributors ahead of time the questions, and they said, this is what we're going to ask you. So come prepared. A lot of.
What, like, did they have slide decks? Was it was it like a round table discussion?
So it looked, obviously it was very much just people pieced to camera, as most of the webinars are. So visually it wasn't overly interesting. It was just the content. They'd thought about it ahead of time.
Yeah.
So each of their experts had, the right information. They came prepared, and they were able, it wasn't ums and ahs, as a lot of Zoom calls are. It's not like, and people talking over each other. It was, each of the experts spoke for a good 10 minutes each and gave their take. And then once they were finished, the next person would answer their question. So, it was formal, and it wasn't groundbreaking, but it was thought out. And I think that brings me back to, my first point. When you're making webinars, don't just think, oh, that was a good chat, maybe we should put it up on YouTube and people will find it interesting. Ahead. Yeah, think ahead of it. If you think this topics you're going to cover might be interesting, tell people
that's
ahead
why
of time.
You're going to be doing if you're inviting people to come and attend a session or a conference or something, you'd be planning out in advance, wouldn't you? So I guess thinking retrospectively after, oh, that was an interesting presentation, what would you go back and re-record the content? Or
just before I answer that, I think you hit the nail on the head perfectly there. Just because we're working from home, just because we're working remotely, don't treat it any different to, as you say, if you were setting up a really expensive conference in a conference hall and you had 10,000 people attending, you wouldn't just wing it on the day and go, oh, that was a success. You'd plan it out ahead of time. So don't make your webinars online any different. Think them out ahead.
So that's a interesting spin on it, having the panel sort of like work with each other and it's essentially it's a nice spin on doing. Did you say there were 6 people?
Yeah.
Instead of just doing 6 presentations, it's a nice way of rebadging it, that, isn't it?
Yeah, and then there was still that sort of back and forth because because everyone could still speak to each other. If someone said something interesting, one of the other experts could jump in and go, "Oh, can I add to that point?" So there was there was still that interaction. It just, as you say, it wasn't people talking for 2 minutes and then interrupting and talking each other over each other, and then cats jumping up in front of your webcam and stuff.
Yeah,
so it was just really thought out, and it impressed me. Out of the sea of webinars I'd seen that month alone, that was the one that stood out to me as they'd thought it through. And it's worked well, and then it didn't stop there as well. Like once they'd recorded it, they didn't just throw it up online and go, there you go. Well, that's our amazing webinar. They then sent it to us. That's where I came in, and I edited it with, I put it into Adobe, into Premiere Pro, and I took the webinar, balanced out all the audio, so made sure everyone, sounded roughly the same audio level wise, and then we added their company branding. We added their color scheme. We added. If someone asked a question, we put that question up on screen, so you had the visual element. If someone's talking for 10 minutes, sometimes you can lose track of what the question was. So we added their text on the screen, and then topped and tailed it with their company logo. So then they had a full piece, hour-long webinar that they could give to the world. And then we also chopped it up. Each expert had their own 10-minute segment that was then utilised on social media. And so from that one webinar, they had 7 pieces of social content that they could utilise, and so it was just
whatever else, because then you've got the chain effect of repeat posting, and then you've got on different platforms as well, so you can email all pieces of those out. You can do a blog about each of them. So with that format, from one webinar event, you've got just off what we've mentioned there, you're into over a dozen pieces of content out of it.
Absolutely, and that's all come from thinking ahead, planning it out. Yeah, so if you just tried to wing that, you'd struggle to pull out anything relevant for social.
So you made me think there of then getting started. So that's the format. Have you seen? Well, before we move on, have you seen any other good formats that that stood out?
I think I've seen ones that have stood out for the wrong reasons. I think we might come on to that. Yeah.
Go on then, give us some fun stuff, because I'm sure some of them are some I've been involved in.
The one that gets to me, and I think this is probably personal more than anything, is the use of, I think in the corporate landscape, the use of gimmicky backgrounds. Like we've all been guilty of it. We've all logged on to...
I love the flowers background.
Yeah, but it adds a little bit of humour, I suppose.
I guess time and a place is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if that's what you're going for, like if that's your style, like you want to be laid back, then absolutely get the craziest backgrounds you can. But when you've got someone talking,
when it's covering the fact that you haven't tidied up behind you, like that,
absolutely.
It's different, isn't it?
Or if the topic's about COVID deaths and you've got a background that's like you're sat on a beach somewhere, or there's fireworks. It's just not.
It's back to practicalities then, sort of like. you mentioned the different speakers, and then you've leveled out the audio and things like that. I know you've had some challenges, haven't you, with internally this as well, with people on different devices. Somebody has a headset, somebody doesn't. Like, where do you start on getting everything level? Because when you're the consumer of that content in the end, someone's this loud, someone's this quiet, someone's tinny. It's an odd experience, isn't it? And I know this is something we were definitely rubbish at in the past. So
yeah, definitely. And I say that comes into sort of my top 5 tips that I'll of summarise later on. But we'll come to that in a roundabout way, I suppose. But yeah, it's I think audio is really important. Anyone in the TV industry or the film industry will tell you, you can watch bad video if the audio sounds great. Like, you can watch a bad film, as long as it sounds good, you can sort of watch, a really cheesy film, or if it visually it looks a bit jarring, you can sort of overcome that. But consumers won't, it could be the next Michael Bay film, like it could be amazing, look, explosions and car chases, but if it sounds awful, like, and if your speakers are breaking up and audio's all over the place. It's so true that,
because even if it looks naff or is shot cheaply, it doesn't look naff, it's just the budget constraints.
Yeah.
Using the movie analogy.
Yeah.
If the story's good and you can tell what the dialogue is, you'll stick with it, won't you?
You'll stick with it, yeah, for good or for worse. Like, you'll watch it through. But yeah, if you turn the TV on and all of a sudden you're overcome with different, screams and noises, and then your speakers are crackling and screeching, and you'll just turn it off straight away. Yeah. And that's no different.
So how do you fix that then? As you're at a business, perhaps as a team of 2 of you, in the marketing team, and you're doing this event, or you and the salesperson are running it, how do you get everyone all on the same hymn sheet?
So, I mean, first off, I think this comes to, again, pre-planning. If you're the boss of the company, for example, and you need 6 of your employees to film a webinar with you, don't spring it on them, like you would in an office space. You tell them, we've got this thing coming up, I want you to be there for it, and we're gonna talk. Let people know ahead of time that they need to be prepared. So give them a chance to get their audio in check. And people will say, well, I don't have a microphone. I can't go to the shops right now and buy spend money on a microphone for work. I'm not going to spend my own money on that. Or, they're just
But they must have something for calls, because everyone's on video calls all day.
Exactly.
So that's good enough.
Everyone's got access to something. There's probably not one person watching this that hasn't bought a new phone in the last 5 years. That new phone will have come with a free pair of headphones. I almost guarantee it. Any iPhone or any Samsung or Huawei, whatever, will have a pair of headphones in the box. And 9 times out of 10, people go, no, I'll just use my headphones I've already got, and they'll chuck them away. Those headphones will be in a drawer somewhere in your house. Guarantee those headphones have a built-in mic in the cord. They'll be more than good enough, because they've been built for phone calls.
I did that this summer because I didn't have a headset. I don't know where it had gone. Still waiting for somebody to own up who borrowed it and not gave it back. But yeah, I was struggling with just the laptop. And I was all right. I could hear everybody. But then eventually I remember Andrew just going, I mentioned, I need a headset really. And he went, yeah. Like, I could tell it'd been bugging people for a few weeks. And then I did exactly that. Bedroom drawer, back, still in the packet, still in the little Apple twist around thing.
Little plastic wrap.
Because my running headphones don't have a speaker.
Yeah.
They're just Bluetooth plugins. Mm-hmm. But yeah, obviously they're designed for speaking into.
Absolutely, yeah. And they say everyone's got something, and you say, running headphones, they're like, I've got a pair of Bluetooth headphones that I use at the gym, and they have a built-in mic.
Oh, right.
Yeah, cool. I actually used them this morning for a call, and I say they worked great.
And what about software then? So that's your mic sorted. What would you do? Give people a dry run, just show them what's...
Yeah, so I think this is important. Again, this comes down to, working with your team. Don't just spring it on people. Start your Zoom call together, and then before you start recording, just do a mic check with everyone. As you say, you were, using your laptop speaker for however long. You probably not once were given the chance for someone to say, oh, actually, Paul, your audio's a bit naff. Like, can we get a microphone?
It became normal, didn't it? Well,
yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah, a bit quiet. All right, I'll just speak louder then.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, people sort of, because of the times, I think, because of the way the world is, people were just eager to get into it. But now, because it is becoming the new norm, now you really need to take a step back and unlearn everything you've been doing recently, because it probably was more from necessity rather than from, a polished production.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
And when you're thinking ahead, that's what this webinar can be, because you can then go and repurpose it into all those places.
absolutely, yeah. So make sure
Good point.
if you took one thing away from this, it is make sure your audio's half decent. You know,
What if you want to go a bit better? Perhaps you've got a bit of something to spend available.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube visually, we're using Rode mics. You know, Rode, Sennheiser, Tascam. They're sort of the industry standard microphones. But again, you don't need to spend that money. You know, we have good microphones because we're a video production. You know, we need the best gear that we possibly can. And hopefully, you know, it sounds half decent to you guys listening and watching. But you can go on Amazon and you can buy, you know,
what they call the Yeti we used to use.
Yeah,
which probably 90% of podcasters around the world use.
Absolutely.
So
I mean,
if you add that to your webinar, it's going to make such a massive difference.
It'll make such a difference compared to the tiny little built-in speaker on your laptop. Anything's a step up from that. So don't think you have to spend big money. Yeah, you can. If you go on Amazon and you type in the microphone, the top 20 microphones will probably be one branded and then 19 Chinese knockoffs.
Perhaps we should just get. I know we've got a blog actually. We'll put a link in the notes underneath. Entry, mid, and high range.
Yeah.
What's next then? So you've had to play with the software. You've got warning that's where you're going to do it. You're on the call together first. What else?
So I think the next thing to step up is your lighting. You won't be able to see it where the cameras are, or if you're listening, but we've got two big lighting rigs at the moment, giving us hopefully a bit of light, because it's pretty late now. Then it's pitch black outside, so we haven't got a lot of natural lighting. And again, this is where people go, well, I don't want to spend money on a light, you know, for my Zoom calls. I don't have the money or the time to get that. You don't need it. A lot of Hollywood.
Everyone's got a light.
You
just need a lamp.
A lot of TV will use natural light.
Yeah.
So I mean, as you say, everyone's got a light, but just use what you've got. Use your
where
window.
You put it as well, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It's more important how it's angled, where it is. I see a lot of, again, not disparaging too many people, I hope, but I've seen so many calls, video calls, where people are sat right in front of their bedroom window, or the bedroom window is facing them while they're talking into the computer. And it's just too harsh. If the window's behind you and it's midday and the light is bright enough, it will completely wash out your image quality. And the same if it's in front of you, it's just going to completely wash out your face, and you're just going to look really overexposed on camera. So if you've got a window, sit with that to the side of you. What you want, and this is like a Hollywood lighting trick, they tend to light one side of someone's face, and it gives the other side of it definition through shadow. So there's no reason why you can't sit side onto a bedroom window. You know, turn your desk, turn your table, and just get that natural light coming on. But I mean, going back to what you were saying, Paul, like everyone's got access to some sort of light, whether it's a torch, whether it's your phone light. You know,
after 3 o'clock, the sun might be that side of your house, might it?
Exactly. Yeah. If you've not got natural light, then you need to move on to sort of whatever you've got lying around the house. You know, if you've got a makeup mirror with those built-in LED lights, I mean, I don't know if you've got
That's
one.
That's what the guys at Vidyard use.
I haven't got one, but
no, it broke. But Yanni, one of our mates at Vidyard, he's got exactly that. Just at like either 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock to his laptop.
Yeah. And again, they're not expensive. You know, you can go to, I'm sure you could go to Boots or, you know, anywhere really that does makeup.
I never thought of that. I always thought it's like, oh, it's a proper video light. It's not.
Yeah,
His is, but it doesn't have to be.
I mean, with the advent of LED technology, like going from halogen bulbs where, you know,
this is where I should mention actually, because this is John's first podcast. If I get him talking on kit, job's fucked. He's gonna. That's it. Show gone.
That's it. Yeah, I could run away and like before you know it, we're 10 hours in. And I'm still giving you gadgets and like what you could buy. Like I love my gadgets, but
we've done a budget this year for kit for the department. He doubled it. And then since then, we've been in a week this year, and I think you've asked for about 4 more pieces of kit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. By the end of the day,
in my head, I'm just like, you can have what you want, but you've already got the budget that you've got. So.
Yeah. I absolutely.
I'm not going asking. We've already asked once. Right. So we've got the mic set up and played on the software. We've got the lighting. What's next?
Then I think this is then the next point is. Don't be afraid to reshoot. Everyone acts like they don't have the time. Everyone's busy, you know, and people are busy. But if you're on a call for half an hour and you realise that 10 minutes in, something's gone wrong, like, I don't know, audio's dropped out, video, you know, one of your pets has jumped in front of your camera.
It's funny at the time for people who are attending.
Yeah. But, you know, and if you want to keep that in again, if that's the style of your video, and then that's great. But if you're going for something more professional, don't be afraid to say, right, let's stop and let's reshoot it. You know, if someone stumbles over their words one too many times and there's too many ums and ahs and too many people interrupting each other, again, don't be afraid to re-record it. Or, on the other side of things, if you had a really, really great talk with someone, but you didn't record all of it, or you don't think the video was that great, just say, you know, that was a really fantastic conversation, but I think we can do better. Can we just do it again?
Yeah.
And then this time we'll get the cameras right, we'll get our audio right. So I think, yeah, people are whether it's too afraid or too busy or just under pressure to get these things out, right? Take a step back. If you think it looks bad, I guarantee your audience think it looks bad. You know, if you think it sounds, if you're asking people, does this sound all right? Then it doesn't sound right. Like, you should be able to tell. You know, it's not rocket science at the end of the day. It's would you sit down and watch it yourself? And I think,
and if you're not comfy with it, you're not gonna share it. You're not gonna put a lot of weight behind it, are you? Whereas if you're more proud of what you're putting out, you're more likely to put your heart into making it a success.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and we all do it. Like, I mean, you know, I've spent years making videos. I tend to find that the videos that I ask people, do you think this looks all right? Aren't great. You know, I could have done better, because I know in my heart I'm just looking for someone to give me reassurance. Whereas, you know, the videos that I've not asked anyone's advice on and just put out into the world,
that's it.
They tend to be.
When someone asks you that, the easiest bit of feedback is, well, what do you think?
Yeah, that's
and
it.
I'm not. If you're happy, I'm happy. Like, you don't need to ask, because.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so what about settings?
Yeah, so
you know, making sure everything's set up correct.
Yeah, I mean, this would be my final tip, and it's this is probably where things get a bit more technical. And again, people are probably a bit afraid to dive into their camera settings or their audio settings. You know, they think, oh, you need to be a
Or even
tech
know they
expert.
exist, perhaps.
Well, yeah,
like,
absolutely, yeah. You know,
a layman like me doesn't really.
Yeah, people don't know that you can just dive into your settings on Google Meet and change so many parameters and just make your video look 10 times better. I mean, most people will have their webcam set up how it came in the box, or, you know, they'll have the computer set up how it came when, you know, they were set through when you first buy your computer and you go through the setup stage, and, you know,
You just want to get going on
you just
whatever you
accept
needed
every
to do.
setting whatsoever, and then that's it. Your computer's then just set up for the next 3-4 years, however long you own it. But if you go into your computer settings, you can change your frame rates and your image quality. Most people will have them set to automatic, which means generally, you know, if you've got a dip in let's say you're doing it over Wi-Fi and your Wi-Fi dips out, your computer will drop the image quality accordingly to keep up with, you know, the bandwidth that your Wi-Fi is giving you. Yeah, so that will mean your image quality will drop. So
Does it not revert back up when it can?
It will do, and
Right.
then you will see sort of that bounce in image
Okay.
quality. So I mean, you don't have to, but what I suggest is going into your settings and set it to the max quality. And there might be times when your Wi-Fi drops out, but that goes back to the point I just made, where if you encounter that issue, just stop the recording, re-record it. You know, don't
rewind a few steps when it comes back on. Say,
Yeah.
what was my last point? I'll just go back to there. Then you can always just splice. You don't need to do the full 20 minutes, do you?
Absolutely.
You can do the last. Just remember what your last point was before you broke off,
Yeah,
and you can just put the two videos together. Then
that's it. You don't have to sacrifice one for the other. You know, you find the time to get your settings right. Learn the setting. You know, you got YouTube at your fingertips. You know, it's an absolute wealth of free knowledge. If you type in anything, you know, how to set up your webcam, how to set up your iPhone, how to set up your GoPro, there will be 1,000 tutorials telling you how to do that.
and I think on that as well, a great tip I heard last year is, if you're ever presenting anything like this, or ever you're the host of something like this, my internet drops off at home at 1:30 to 1:35 every day. It must be something where it switches channels or something. So if I'm ever in a meeting around then, just have my laptop tethered to my phone, ready for 4G to just be your backup.
Absolutely, yeah. And you can set that automatically as well. Like I've done exactly the same thing if I'm ever out on location live streaming. You wouldn't just have one cable. You'd always have a backup, because the last thing you want is that cable to get cut or break, or your Wi-Fi to drop out, and then your stream just drops out to the world, and you've been paid money to send out a presentation to the world and you can't do it. So there's no reason why you can't do that in your own home. Like set up contingencies, set up backups, if you need them.
How are we doing for time?
We are just over the 30-minute mark, so I think we hit that pretty well.
Good, as we just did the last tip then. So
yeah.
So just to recap, what's the top levels?
So my top 5 tips. Number 1 is plan ahead. Allow, if you're hosting a webinar, a web conference, whatever it might be, tell people ahead of time. Tell them what you want from them, roughly how long you think it might last. What
you're talking about the speakers here, not the attendees.
The speakers. Sorry, yeah. So let them know visually how you want them to have the room set up. If you want a certain background, or if you want, say, I want everyone to film this out in the garden. Make sure people are aware ahead of time, so it's not a rush. People aren't panicked to get that done. So that's tip number 1. Be prepared if you need to write scripts, whatever. I think number 2, we might have gone out of order talking about them, but number 2 I've got is lighting. Use a torch, use your phone light, use an LED mirror, use your windows accordingly. Again, just practice what looks good. Don't have the light directly in front of your face, because you're going to look over, washed out, overexposed. Just see what looks good, and you'll be able to see on your webcam if you think it looks good. So that was number 2, lighting. Number 3 was audio. If you're going to invest in anything, if you're going to spend money on anything, go to Asda, go to the tech aisle, buy yourself a £5 microphone. You'll find them there. Go into your drawers, find your old iPhone cable with the mic built in. Everyone will have access to a microphone. So don't allow poor audio quality, because people will just not pay attention. People will drop out. Number 4,
change your settings.
Number 4, change your settings. Get used to your computer. Go into your control panel, go on YouTube, learn, just watch a 5-minute video on how to...
That's one that stood out to me. That's one I never thought of doing. Just plug it in and get going and never think about your settings ever again. So
absolutely, yeah. You just assume that it's ready to go. Whereas,
you think it's on best. Yeah. You just assume it'll be set to the best it can be. Absolutely,
yeah. So just check, if you want the best quality, then you need to invest the time into learning, those settings. And it's not rocket science. Yeah. It's all there. Change setting from HD to 4K, and it's simple stuff.
I like it.
And then number 5 was, don't be afraid to reshoot. If you think it's a good webinar, luckily we've got through half an hour of this and we haven't stumbled over much. We haven't needed to, but I'm sure if we'd got 15 minutes in and you'd gone, John, you're waffling too much, or like, Paul, your camera's died, we need to reshoot, then just checking the cameras are actually still rolling.
We just go back and redo it.
Yeah, we just redo it, because
the people who are there, they don't mind. It happens. You just explain and they wait for you and you carry on.
Exactly.
If you're going to put it out polished, it's worth spending 20 minutes just refixing that bit in the middle. I love it.
That's it.
Nice one, John. So check out our other podcasts. We've got Inbound After Hours, Inbound Influencers, and this is the first episode of Video First, the new show on D22 Studios. So
episode 1, first of many.
If you want to check the others out, they're all on SoundCloud or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Digital 22. Check out all our videos on our video hub, video.digital22.com, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yes.
Just search for Digital 22 Online Limited, or hit the button below, or whatever you do.
Yeah, and this will be our first proper YouTube podcast. This is our first YouTube first podcast.
Video first, YouTube first.
That's it, yeah.
Nice one, mate. Let's go get another can.
Let's do it.